everyone. This is a big emergency broadcast. Everyone's talking about what? There's supposed to be some broadcast tomorrow. But the most important thing, of course, is the fact that Awareness School starts for fall 2 weeks from yesterday evening on October 16th at 5 p.m. We're starting our 10 weeks of adventure into the inner workings of your mind. And so we wanted to come on tonight to talk about it, to say hello, to answer questions. For those of you who do not know, I'm Melissa, this is Steve. We teach a class called Awareness School that, if you're interested in getting to know yourself, if you're interested, like the bridge between the German New Medicine stuff and Awareness School. So Awareness School has nothing directly to do with GNM, with your conflicts, but it has to do with your perception of everything, your perception of the world, your perception of your body, your perception of all of your life experiences. And basically we take you on this journey for understanding a framework. It's like dog chaos over here. Understanding a framework for how you create your internal experience. So if there's something that you're dealing with that you're trying to figure out, if you're trying to identify your tracks, if you're trying to look back in your personal history and figure things out, connect dots, it's very, very beneficial to have this map. I often find myself when I have consults and talk with people that it's like, take Awareness School, because it just gives you this basic toolbox to work with when you're trying to pinpoint what's going on with me. Why am I having this particular experience again and again and again? And it allows you to do that work on your own, because ultimately all the work that we do is self-work. People can point you in the right direction and give you tools and give you ideas, but ultimately you kind of have to do it on your own. And so this really equips you feeling more confident for doing that type of work, for making those interconnections.
Yeah. I was just talking to somebody this afternoon who took the last course of Awareness School, the last class. And one of my favorite things about it is when people who take Awareness School say, okay, what's next? Because they want to either take it again or they want to, what's the next program that we have kind of for ongoing support. And, it's interesting. So when you're like marketing a course like this, which I suppose is kind of like what this is, right? I mean, it doesn't feel like marketing to me, but I guess this is about as close to marketing as we get. Like, you're supposed to be really specific. What is this course going to help people do? What are people's problems? You want to really make them aware of what their problems are, and then you want to say how this course is going to help. And that's always tough for us. One, because I guess we're just not necessarily adept at it naturally. The other reason, though, is that it is kind of a just generally applicable, very useful set of tools and skills that help with pretty much everything. So the different people who come to Awareness School, they come for a number of different reasons, and they oftentimes have different struggles, they have different problems, they have different issues. Sometimes it's health stuff, specifically like mindset related to health stuff. Even more specific than that, mindset related to using GNM to help resolve health stuff. That's kind of the typical thing. A lot of the time people have relationship problems. A lot of the times people are dealing with self-image issues or anxiety. People pleasing is a big thing. Self-worth, confidence, not feeling confident talking to people in sort of in a romantic context, being afraid to start a business. Narcissistic parents is a really big one. A lot of times that was maybe connected to some of the other things. And what I like about it is that we always have an interesting different group of people who are involved. And we use the same stuff to help all of them, basically, because if you install useful ideas at a high enough level in a person's kind of mental hierarchy, those ideas can kind of trickle down and find their way into whatever area of life the person's looking to improve. The content of a specific life struggle. There are principles that are general enough to apply to almost everything, while also being specific enough to be actually implementable, functionally useful, not just kind of vacuous personal or spiritual growth, feel-good gobbledygook, right? There actually are kind of templates and guides and patterns for resourceful mental activity, interpersonal conduct that can allow a person to start moving from sort of where they are to where they want to be in any area. And I think one of the reasons it's kind of hard to describe what this is right out of the gate is that what it is determined largely by what you specifically need it to be. And that's why Awareness School is neat, because we take the Ever Better Life course, which is just a whole bunch of ideas and patterns and principles and really cool stuff. And people had great success taking that for like years. And then we combine that with like the group coaching element or the group meetings, which is the weekly thing that we do. So we have 13 meetings as part of Awareness School. And in those meetings, we've got like dog action going on. In those meetings, we deal with people's, what are you struggling with, right? What are you struggling with in your life? What about this material is difficult for you, or are you struggling with, or are you kind of having a hard time accepting or having a hard time implementing, or what don't you agree with? What do you agree with, but you have a hard time putting into practice, all this. And really, it's through people's individual life situations that the reality of the work begins to come to life. And it really is something that you can kind of shape into sort of whatever you want. You know, it's kind of interesting if you were to think about, lately we've been watching Little House on the Prairie. It's kind of a wholesome entertainment. And one of the things is like they go to the general store and they buy these big like spools, or is it a spool of cloth? I don't know what it is, but they buy these big like lengths of cloth, and then they just take it home and make a shirt, or they just take it home and make a dress. And it's just, I was just like, God, that's so strange. That like your average person could take a length of material and construct garments out of it. And I was like, you know, the Ever Better Life course is a little bit like a length of that garment. These ideas, these patterns, these principles, it's like a roll of material. And a lot of what the group sessions are about is training a person to effectively take that material and shape it into whatever, you know, you need a shirt, you need some pants, you need, I don't know, a blouse, right? I guess it's a type of shirt, but whatever, right? And it's, you know, how can a person learn to respond more resourcefully to what's going on in their head? So if you've got negative thinking in your head, I can tell you, think positive, not negative. That's good advice. That doesn't mean that it's going to be sufficient to actually change your life. It doesn't mean that you're not going to encounter problems when you're trying to do it. A lot of what we do, rather than tell people, don't do this and do this, we say, okay, you find yourself doing this, thinking negative, even though you don't want to. How can you respond more resourcefully to the fact that you think as negatively as you do, as often as you do? So it's all about learning to respond resourcefully to the reality of what is going on in this moment. Now, that's a simple concept. Actually getting to the point of like, what for you specifically? What line of reasoning? What combination of ideas? What do we need to say to you? And what do you need to start saying to yourself in order to effectively persuade yourself to actually respond to the essential things that are going on in your life right now in ways that will let you create more of what you want and less of what you don't? That's what Awareness School is about. And that's hard to put that in a Facebook post. You know what I mean? It's kind of it's a kind of a big thing. But a lot of it is, it's just like this thing where you get to stop resisting what's going on. You get to stop disliking things about yourself. You get to stop suffering over stuff that's going on in your outside world. You get to stop telling yourself that things have to be other than they are before you're allowed to feel peaceful or happy or okay or whatever. And you just get to start responding resourcefully to reality as it exists. I get to suffer less. I get to respond more effectively. I get to create more of what I want. That's pretty much what it is. And it's really orienting your mind to that sequence, right? Resist less, suffer less, respond more resourcefully, create more of what I want. And pretty much streamlining your relationship to whatever has your attention so that you're able, not that you have to, but so that you're able to spend more of your life doing that in response to whatever it is that you're dealing with. And it's not that taking this course is going to magically fix everything that's going on in your life. It won't. There are things that are going wrong in your life now that will be going wrong in your life when this course is over, possibly, right? But you will be responding more resourcefully to those things. You will be suffering less over those things. If you've got physical stuff going on, it's not that it's all going to vanish because you take a 10-week course. That's not how it works. But you can sort of liberate yourself from the experience that you're creating of that situation, right? And when I learn how to create a new experience of an undesirable situation, one, I can have a better time right now, even though the situation is the way that it is. The other thing that happens, and this is something that I find really exciting, when I learn how to create a new experience of the same old situation, something about suffering less over it, something about not resisting it as much, it like unlocks new sets of responses that I was capable of, but never really able to make sense out of engaging in, which very often allow me to change that situation in the ways that I want. So that's really what Awareness School is all about. It's about locating your capacity for new, more resourceful responses within yourself and then building a way of, basically persuading yourself to consistently do those things. How can you make sense out of doing more of what serves you and less of what doesn't? So that you can find out the extent to which the world, your life, actually is capable of changing in the ways that you want it to.
Yeah. One of the things too is like a lot of the concepts, a lot of the ideas are like things people are kind of familiar with and they get it in principle. Like, again, like think positive and, respond more gracefully in situations. It's like, I know that. I know that. This is like the difference between knowing and awareness. A lot of people think, I'm aware. I know I do this. I know I, nag and criticize. I know I can be unpleasant. I know about these aspects of myself. Yet I still engage in the same behaviors. If that's you, if you're like, I know I should do this and I get it in principle and I agree with it and you're absolutely right. I was speaking with someone recently and they're like, yep, all of those things, totally agree, absolutely, that's what's going on. However, in the moment, I can't do it. How do I do it? How do I bring this big picture knowing about how would be better to interact, to engage, to behave, to respond? I know it, but in the moment, there is a disconnect. And then I find myself regretting and feeling bad and feeling guilty and kind of going through this whole, oh, why can't I do the things I know I want to do? The course really does. It helps you to make that bridge so that more of the time, still not all the time necessarily, but more of the time you have access to those tools, to those resources in the moments when you need it. And so it's like, it's learning how to use all of your tools, knowing where your tools are in the dark so that you can access and use them in the moments when it matters, in the moments when you really need a new way to think about something rather than, stepping on that track, staying on that track. That's when it's very, very helpful when it comes to, understanding that all the time, if I'm having a chronic issue, there are like tracks and reminders, and it could be certain people, a person in my life could be a track for me. And when I mentally interact with that person in a certain way, it's like I step on that track, I step on the gas to that track, and when I come off of it, I get a bunch of symptoms. And it's how long I'm on it and how intense that conflict with that person is. And that interaction with that track is going to determine how bad my flare-up of symptoms are going to be when I come off the track. And so if I'm not aware and I don't have tools in that moment to respond differently, it's like, I know my ex-partner is a track, or I know that my mother-in-law, that's like the classic one, is a track for me. And whenever she, someone recently was like, oh, I found myself waking up thinking about anticipating weeks from now an interaction I'm going to have with my mother-in-law and engaging in it in an unresourceful way. And before, this person may not have noticed that she was doing that. And now that she knows, she can see, okay, this is a track for me. This potentially could be creating, some type of unnecessary drama, unnecessary symptoms. And because I can see it, because I'm paying attention, because I know what I'm looking for now, I can interact with it differently. And that is freedom. The ability to actually take conscious control of your thoughts, your feelings, your actions in a way that doesn't feel forced, and it doesn't feel like, really tough self-discipline and I'm just forcing myself to be a better person, but it's like genuinely inspired, guided, led to behaving in the ways you want to, interacting with life in the ways that you want to, in ways that feel really good. And so it's like learning how to engineer that, make that natural for you. And so a lot of it, again, it's not like it's stuff you've never encountered before, but it's taught in such a way that I have found extremely helpful. Prior to doing any of this work, it was very, very hard for me to recognize my thoughts, to pay attention to my reactions to things. It just seemed like it was just, I'm just this way. This is just the way that it is. And now I can see, this isn't just the way that it is. This has to do with my inner programming, my inner patterns, the way that I'm engaging and interacting with my world, with my environment. And there's something I can do about it. And that feels really good to take those actions, to kind of exercise your autonomy of breaking free from the paths that were laid down for you by your early life circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things you said was really interesting was, I know I should. I don't know what it was that you said, what the example was specifically. I know I should not be so negative. We've got very needy dogs this afternoon. I know I should be more positive. And like what my experience is, and this is kind of an example of what we do. It's much easier to do what we do in Awareness School than it is to talk about what we do. A lot of the times a person's problem is that they spend too much time knowing that they should do something, rather than spending that time being curious about how much better their life would be, how much better what it's like to be them would be like if they did that thing more of the time. So a lot of the times they think, oh, I know I should do this and I'm still not doing it. I need to know that I should do it even more. But to me, it's like, be less certain that you should think positively. Be less certain that you should forgive these people, whoever they are. Be less certain that you should improve yourself, right? Stop knowing that you should do this stuff. Set that knowing aside and fill that space with curiosity about how different your experience might be if you chose or exercised the option to do that stuff. See, there's like a little bit of a difference there, and that flavor can very often be the thing that makes your mind become receptive to a good idea. It's really easy to present people with good ideas. All I have to do is hear that idea from somebody else, and then I show it to you, and I say, there you go. That'll be X amount of money. You know what I mean? What's really challenging and what's really rewarding is figuring out how to make an idea accessible to a person, figuring out how to helping a person persuade themselves to not only agree with an idea, but also act upon it, right? Not only agree with the idea that you're worthy of having the things that you want in life, but actually act upon that idea. Act mentally upon that idea, which is to say, modify your thinking in ways that reflect the fact that you agree that it's okay for you to have the things that you want to have in life. That's a different game, and it's a little bit more challenging, but it's also a lot more rewarding. Something else that you said made me think about this, that like sort of the optimal personal growth strategy or the optimal relationship to reality, be very permissive with what is and very insistent with regard to what can be. Which is to say, I am sort of, when it comes to how my mind works, when it comes to, there's a dog down there, when it comes to all this different stuff, let it be okay that you're doing what you're doing. Let it be okay that you're as negative as you are, or that your mind is sort of as unresourceful as it is, or that your life circumstances are as difficult as they are. Try your best to let that be emotionally okay, while at the same time becoming very insistent and very determined about realizing that situation's capacity to change. Many people find this quite challenging, right? Because they have this, in their mind, there's this direct relationship between if they say, I want to change, something inside them immediately starts emotionally resisting the fact that they are the way that they are in this moment. And it's almost like that emotional resistance of what is cancels out their determination to create what can be. So one of the things is, can I see myself thinking a thought that doesn't serve me and let that be truly, totally, completely, 100% emotionally okay, while also recognizing, it might serve me if my mind were thinking something different right now. It might serve me if I were creating a different feeling in response to this situation. Again, without pathologizing, without criminalizing, without, what would you call it, sinifying, right? Turning it into a bad, naughty, not okay, that my mind's doing the thing that it's currently doing. So that's another thing that we spend a lot of time doing in Awareness School, is teaching the individual, right? Figuring out how to persuade the individual, helping you feel your way into an elegant and an effective and an efficient strategy for how can I recognize the possibility for positive change in my life, because we all have things in life that if they were different, our lives would be better, without having to sort of reflexively resist what is in the current situation. And once you have that, you're really much freer as a person, because you've got the ability to do two things. And there's a lot of people who don't have the ability to do either of these, right? You can feel at peace with the way you are and with the way things are, right? So you don't have to suffer because things are the way that they are currently. And then the other thing that you get to do is to recognize and act upon your capacity for desirable change. Can I just say you're able to go after what you want, improve in the ways that you would want to improve. Oh, can we see the puppy? Yeah, let's get what everyone really cares about. This is Pearl. She's an absolute angel. This weekend, I actually went to Michigan, flew all the way to Michigan to pick her up, put her on the airplane with me. She sat with me on the plane. I feel very fortunate. It worked out just fine. Melissa was nice enough to drive down to Los Angeles to pick us up. And we've had just a marvelous time. A little underslept, but very happy. And she's just a perfect girl. 5-hour airplane ride at 8 weeks old, and no bathroom accidents, no crying, no anything. Just really sweet. So super lucky. If you join Awareness School, you might get a little Pearl cameo. A little sweet puppy might jump in too. So yeah, that's pretty much, that's what we're trying to do in this course. And it really is basically turning you, not into us, not into, Tony Robbins, not into an angel, not into a saint, not into anything other than what you are, turning you into a resourceful responder, right? Now that is something that you can kind of add to your identity without compromising anything that's there currently. It's a completely real skill set and attitude that you can seamlessly integrate into the reality of who you are, that doesn't require you to pretend to not be a little cynical, pretend to not be a little sarcastic. Like you have like certain things like the real you, and it's like pretty intrinsic to who you are, but it almost maybe doesn't jive with your spiritual activity or your personal growth endeavors. So you're always kind of like compromising these things. The nice thing about being a resourceful responder, you don't have to be cheerful if you're not cheerful. You don't have to be one of those, you don't have to be an extrovert. You don't have to be, super, there's people just super nice. And, sometimes they're nice to be around, but if that's not you, it's a tremendous burden to impose upon yourself to try to be like that person. A lot of people, they go around, they live their life thinking that they've got to be as nice and as cheerful as the nicest, most cheerful person they know if they're ever going to find a mate, if they're ever going to make money, be successful, be liked, and all this. And it's just not true. And so what we're talking about here is it's you only better. It's you only, you're able to respond more resourcefully and more peacefully and more effectively and more efficiently, which just means that you can do things that work without having to make tremendous amounts of unnecessary effort, right? That's what weaving this kind of resourceful response into your situation is. And the really nice thing is, in order to respond resourcefully, you don't have to be fundamentally different than you are, and your situation doesn't have to be fundamentally different than it is. Because if you think about it, for every person in every life situation, right? And so that person has certain skills and they've got certain, liabilities or certain kind of shortcomings or just certain predispositions. They've also got certain goals and objectives, right? And then they've got a situation, and that situation is more or less what they want, right? Maybe there's a lack of what they want. There's a abundance of what they don't want, whatever. So for that person in that situation, there is an optimal sequence of behaviors, mental and physical, that will allow them to create a maximum of what they want, given the constraints that are imposed upon them by the realities with which they're dealing. For me, becoming a resourceful responder is about making it easier for that person to easily find their way to that optimal set of mental and behavior. What are the chances that what I choose to think and what I choose to do is going to be as close to maximally resourceful as it possibly could be? And really, this course is about increasing your ability to sort of deliberately move in the direction of maximally resourceful responses. What's a resourceful response? It's one that gets you as much of what you want as you can get, right? With a minimum of what you don't want. Now, if you're going to be responding anyway, you might as well be responding resourcefully, right? If you're going to be thinking thoughts anyway, they may as well be resourceful. Remember, resourceful doesn't mean nice, good, holy, sacred, virtuous, kind, loving, forgive. Resourceful means consistent with creating what you want. You don't want bad things. You don't want other people to suffer. It's not it's not an issue to think in terms of what's going to help you get what you want. It's a really nice thing. One of the nice things about it is, and if you've ever been around someone who's okay with going after and getting what they want, it's a wonderful feeling for you because that person tends to be okay with you doing the same thing. It's this wonderful lack of pressure, this wonderful permission. Oh, you mean you're trying to create a maximum of what you want, a minimum of what you don't want in your life? Oh, me too. I wonder if we could work together on that. It's nice. It's not a problem. We don't start killing each other because like, well, I'm the only person who matters. People have these weird hang-ups about stuff like that. And so if I'm going to be thinking thoughts, I might as well be thinking thoughts that are kind of pushed in the direction of being resourceful for me. And if I'm going to be behaving, if I'm going to have habits one way or the other, I might as well have habits that are going to tend over time to help me create a happy relationship instead of a crappy relationship, right? One that's going to build love and harmony instead of, resentment and anger and hostility. I'm going to be interacting with my partner as much as I am. I'm going to be interacting with human beings as much as I am. I might as well, interact with them in the right way? No. Nice way? No. I mean, people-pleasing way? No. Hostile way? Aggressive way? Defensive way? No. A resourceful way. What does that mean? In a way that's consistent with creating the kind of relationships that who wants to have? You. that a woman should have? No. That a man should have? No. that you want to have. And awareness is just really getting clear about what it is that's important to you and what you want, right, in the big picture. And then allowing you in the moment-to-moment reality of your life in which you make choices about how to think, feel, and act, right? Allowing that big picture clarity to trickle down and influence those things that you have a capacity to influence by the choices that you make. So that I am, if I'm not able to create everything I want to have in my life, does that mean I have to be depressed and resigned and give up? I don't think so. What I want to do, though, is I want to make sure that I exercise every opportunity that is available to me to create a maximum of the things that I want to have in my life. I don't want to miss a lot of opportunities. I don't want to fail to exercise certain choices over time that, if I did exercise those choices consciously, right, would allow me to accumulate a vast wealth of positive experience, useful habits, good rapport with my partner, good physical health, and things like that. And so really, I guess, see, I don't even know what Awareness School is about until we start doing these videos. And then as I'm talking, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, this is what it's about. Okay, here we go. that it's kind of like getting your mind calibrated in a way so that what you do by default, your habits, those little things that you do without thinking, those things serve you sort of and add to sort of your foundation, rather than accumulating on top of you and adding to the burden that you're hauling with you as you go throughout your life. Sometimes, you ever feel that way, that you're kind of hauling around the burden of the consequences of your choices, what you have and haven't done, what you have and haven't thought, how you didn't exercise last night, how you ate too much Chinese food last night. I mean, your choices, they're either adding to the foundation on which you're standing as you advance further sort of upward and forward in the direction that you want to go, or they're being kind of added to a sort of psychic backpack or burden that you've got to haul around with you. And it's just a really wonderful thing when you do a little work on the front end. And this is a little kind of rich person stuff. This is investment work, right? You invest in this, and you invest in recalibrating your kind of, psychic GPS so that what is automatic for you and what happens by default tends to be more resourceful than it used to be. And you're developing this conscious awareness so that you can not be beholden to default automatic functioning, so that you can choose when it's appropriate, I'm going to do this and not that, right? So you got two things going for you at this point. You got your mind, which is operating all the time, sort of your unconscious, right? And it's building surprises for you instead of making messes, right? That's so nice. Like if you wake up in the morning and you are just in a good mood, your mind's been doing good work for you, it's so nice, rather than waking up to a really crappy feeling that you've then got to contend with. It's like walking in, a toddler has destroyed the living room or something. So training your mind to behave in the way that you want it to, and then also being more present with your mind and more compassionate with your mind and more sort of, resourcefully responsive to your mind, so that if it starts to go off the rails a little bit, you don't have to make it worse. You just kind of start kind of correcting it, pushing it in the direction that you want to go. As you form this kind of relationship with yourself, my personal experience is you start to form that kind of relationship with more and more of the things that are going on in your outside world, with your partner, right, with your children, with your physical body, with your business. If those things aren't going the way that you want them to, rather than getting your heart broken and withdrawing or becoming resentful or despondent or enraged or frustrated, you start to have this kind of, wonderful patient compassion that just arises. I kind of cringe as I was saying that, 'cause it's like, that might sound like bullshit, but it really is true. This wonderful, it kind of tells you where I'm coming from. This wonderful patient compassion that arises as a result of this absolute conviction with regard to positive possibility. This situation can be different. This person, especially me, can be different. Things aren't going well. They can change for the better. The business isn't performing well. It can improve. This relationship is a mess, and it can get better. My partner does things that annoy me, and and they can get better, and I can get better. And it's just this really. What do you have to be aware of in order to easily elicit from yourself really resourceful responses at the mental, emotional, and behavioral level? How can we make it natural for you to do what will serve you, so that you're doing what feels right and you're also doing what produces the results that you want to produce over time? Life gels in a really lovely way when that's the case. And that's Awareness School is really about that. making it so that you're one of those aligned people.
Yes, someone asked if we're going to do a Q&A, so yeah, sure. If you have a question about Awareness School, or we can just kind of do a demo. If you've got a life problem and you're watching this video right now, you can put it in the comments and we will kind of talk about it to give a jumping off point, because really it is. It's like that's really the fun part of Awareness School, are the weekly meetings and what's going on with people. It's like what's going on in your life, what's a sticking point, what's a drama, what's something, a conflict you keep coming up against, and let's use the tools from the course and highlight how this idea can help you out of this problem. And it's making it more streamlined, making easy, making it make sense. Because again, it's like if you're worrying and you keep worrying and you don't know how to not worry anymore, worry is the thing that makes the most sense to you. And we have to learn how to make sense out of doing something different. And so a lot of times it's simply an idea that you haven't ever considered before. And when that idea gets sprinkled into your mind, it is like, oh, I could look at it that way. I could tell myself this story instead of that. It's equally accessible now that I can see it. But before, when it's in the dark, when it's not illuminated, you don't have access to that solution. And so it's like, let's reveal all of these tools, all of these things that you could have access to right now to shift your experience. So let's see what people have going on.
We get to the Q&A about 45 minutes in, I have to take a breath, and that's usually...
Oh, here's a good one. Can you speak to the self-judgment around a person's timing of where they are versus where they think they should be? Oh, that's a beautiful question, and one that comes up so much in so many different ways. It is. It's like, that is resisting what is. Resisting what is, where I'm at in my life, where, we've got this picture in our mind of where we thought we would be at this age, financially, romantically, in terms of building your family, and it's that picture and that constant comparison that keeps you stuck. And often you'll find is even if you get to the next level, that it's your orientation to the stuff that you want. You always want the thing that's right out of reach, the thing you don't have yet, and constantly you're just programmed to suffer over it. And so part of the work would be in looking at, how do I go about doing that? How do I consistently create for myself an experience of dissatisfaction with the way life is right now? This is the pattern of the dissatisfied woman, typically. Could also apply to men, but I have found primarily in women, it is, I'm constantly dissatisfied with what is, because part of me thinks that the only way I'm going to get what I want is by consistently being, sour about the way things are. And even if you look at that on the surface and you're like, actually, it doesn't make sense, but deep down, that, like, there's this defensive part of me, fight or flight. Oh my God, I feel like I'm not going to get the life that I want. So I need to be as possible. I need to resist this with all of my might in order to potentially get it. And it's realizing, so zooming out far enough to see that approach doesn't work. It's never worked. It's never going to work. And you have to have such a clarity about the fact that this doesn't work to open up to doing new and different things.
Yeah. So the way I do it is, and this is kind of a little bit of the awareness stuff, right? So get really good at recognizing when the idea that you should be somewhere other than you are is active in your mind, is influencing your experience. Get really good. Don't see people sometimes they want to skip straight to, I want to get rid of that idea. I want to get good at not having that idea. I want to vanquish that idea. I want to embrace the opposite idea. I'm exactly where I should be. And you can layer a positive idea on top of a negative idea. But what usually happens is it's not okay that I am where I am. It's fine that I am where I am, and everything's wonderful and happening just like it's supposed to. And typically what happens is that you've got kind of trying to think of a good illustration that's not disgusting. You've got a really nasty cake with some tasty icing on top. And, it's simmering underneath it, all that kind of negativity. And so instead of trying to fight against it, my thing is I want to make it so that I can't feel that I am somewhere other than I ought to be in my life without being acutely aware of the fact that I am entertaining ideas that are causing me to feel that way, right? I want to make it impossible for me to do that feeling without knowing that I'm doing that feeling. And without, I'm talking about in this moment, not that I have a tendency to, but here I am in my kitchen washing the dishes and I'm stressed out about my age, relationship status, financial situation, health, whatever, right? And I want to, and then start to say, and there's certainty there, right? Isn't there certainty? Like when you're worried that you're not where you should be in life, isn't there certainty about the fact that you are not okay, or about the fact that it's not okay that you are where you are, or about the fact that it's very likely that you should be somewhere else, or that it's very appropriate for you to feel bad. This is that you were talking about making sense out of stuff. Doesn't it make so much, it makes so much sense to you to feel anxious or depressed in that moment that you literally can't not do it. Now, that kind of suggests to you something about how wonderful life can be. The more aware you become, the more sense it makes to do what serves you. And it starts to make so much sense that you literally can't not do it. You can't not let go of resistance when you see how much resistance doesn't serve you, how much it will serve you to let it go. So there's constant implications about, as bad as things are now, says something about how good things will be once this automatic process is pointing in the right direction. So I would look at it and say, what's my problem right now? Is my problem that I'm not where I should be in life? Maybe. What else might my problem be? Maybe my problem is the certainty that I have that I'm not where I should be. I am not where I should be. I am where I shouldn't be. And search for conviction, search for certainty, search for a sense that you know that you're not there, right? Maybe it's vicarious knowing. Maybe your mother or your father tells you that you're not where you should be. Maybe you can imagine that they would tell you if they could see you. Maybe you imagine what they think or would think. I don't know. Maybe it's vicarious certainty. In any event, notice that it's there and you go, you know what? My problem in terms of suffering is that I am certain that I'm in the wrong place. That's suggestive to me something about the solution. The solution might be a little bit of uncertainty. Can you be slightly uncertain that you aren't, or slightly uncertain that you are not where you should be, right? A little bit less certain than you normally are. Will you acknowledge to yourself that there's really no way to know for sure that you're in the wrong place at the wrong time in your life? Even if you are in the wrong place, sometimes being in the wrong place is exactly what you need in order to gather the experiences and move forward into the future, right? I mean, wrong things happen, bad things happen, people make mistakes, people waste time, people take too long to get started. These are all acceptable aspects of the human experience. And by the way, they're also things that people very often go forward to be very happy and very successful after having done. So I would start to question whether or not you know for sure that, are you really as certain as you pretend to be? Are you really as certain as you feel that you are, that you're not where you should be in life? That's one. And then we're going to layer that uncertainty. So the next thing I would do is I would start to go, let's say that I'm not where I should be in life, where I could be in life, right? Where I would be if I had made better choices. Am I really certain that why do I care about that? Does it mean that I'm bad or wrong? Is it a negative forecast for my future? Does it tell me that there's all this implicit stuff going on in the back of your mind, and we want to bring it to the front of your mind, and someone's disturbing, and bring it to the front of your mind and start really examining it and begin acknowledging, not affirming, I don't know that I'm not, acknowledging, I don't actually know that I'm in the wrong place in my life right now. And even if I am in the wrong place in my life, even if I'm not where I should be, I don't know what that means about what's not possible for me moving forward. I actually don't know. You'll feel that stress start leaving your body right there in the kitchen. You're washing those dishes, and if you will just acknowledge to yourself how certain you can't be about how bad your situation is. And even if the situation is as bad as you sometimes fear that it might be, you're not certain how bad that is. Maybe it's fine. Maybe it's okay. Maybe it's exactly what's supposed to be happening. Maybe you move forward into a happy future from here. Maybe you don't move forward into a happy future from here, and cosmically everything works out wonderfully anyway. So I would really look at what is the structure, right, of my suffering? What's the structure of this nagging feeling? What work do I have to put in order to constrain myself and create tension? This is this thing too. How do I make sense out of resisting my situation? How do I make sense out of resisting what I think my situation might mean, right? And what that is there's this unspoken story in the background. Start saying to yourself something like, I'm not where I should be in life. And then say, well, so what? Say, so what? Not so that you can dismiss it and end it, but so that you can initiate a dialogue with your mind and start unraveling these knots that keep the suffering sweater together, right? So, the mind goes, I think I'm in the wrong place. And you go, so what? And then the mind goes, well, if I'm in the wrong place, it means I'm not in the right place. And you go, so what? And the mind goes, well, I always thought I'd be here and not there at this stage. Well, so what? Well, if I'm here and not there at this stage, what does that mean about what's going to happen next? I might not get this. And you go, really? Are you sure about that? And then, and just have a conversation with yourself and really force your mind to go on the record. Because I don't know if you've ever been in a relationship with a person where they try to convince you to feel bad when they don't really have a good reason for you to. There's a lot of implied communication. There's a lot of unverifiable stuff. And if you can start teasing that stuff out, you can really start, it's like you loosen the straitjacket enough to wiggle out of it. But if you fight it when it's tight, you're never going to get out. If you make big, massive things, sort of like, this is Steve's tips on how, because when I escaped the state hospital, this is what I did. But some people have no trouble believing that. But if you start going like this right from the beginning, it's not going to work. It's these little movements. I'm looking for looseness. I'm looking for give. I'm looking for vulnerability in this bad feeling. I'm feeling for the soft spot in this negative story. Where is the thing where's the story the weakest? And sometimes it's not the belief. And this is, by the way, a really kind of useful tip. People get all hung up on worthiness. I'm unworthy. What if I'm not worthy? I don't feel worthy, whatever. And they try to make themselves feel worthy. And it's like this kind of losing game, because the more they try to make themselves feel worthy, the more they have to keep putting all this effort into reassuring themselves in the world that they're worthy. My thing is, if that's a belief you have, I'm not worthy, rather than trying to take that belief away, it's like a Mount Everest-sized belief, trying to climb over it, I am worthy. Start saying, so what? So what? I'm not worthy of what I want. Well, who cares? And then the mind will go, well, but if you're not worthy of what you want, you won't get it. And you go, are you sure? Because that's another belief, and usually that belief is weaker. What if you could get everything you wanted in life and keep it forever and have a super happy, fun time and not be worthy of any of it? Would that work for you? You could get the outcome that you wanted without being worthy of it. People tell me that they think that I do a great job all the time, and I sometimes don't feel worthy of that praise. And I love it. I feel like I'm getting away with something. I'm kind of like, this is great. Because if you're super smart and someone says you're super smart, well, you just got a compliment you deserve. But if you're actually not that smart, you're just kind of good at a certain thing, and people love you and think you're great, well, that's like, I found $100 on the sidewalk. That's a boon. That's a bonus. That's fun. That's delightful. That's great. That's fantastic. The point is, rather than attacking, you never want to attack the enemy where he's expecting you and where he's strongest. You want to start looking where are the weak points. And the weak points are usually in the meanings that we assign to things, the unspoken implications, right? I'm unworthy. That means that I won't get what I want, or that I can't enjoy having it, or that I won't be able to keep it, and all this different stuff. It's like, that's not true. Look around the world. I'm sure you'll see all sorts of people that you think aren't worthy of things, and they have them. They're having a really great, super, fantastic time. So really try to just acknowledge how uncertain you actually are that you're in the wrong place, and then see if you can acknowledge, layer on top of that, the uncertainty about even if you are not where you should be or where you could be. Does that mean you can't get to where you want to go? No, I'm not convinced that that's true. I don't know that that's true. You don't know that that's true either, but you spend a lot of time pretending that you know that that's true, which is why you probably feel as bad as you do, which is probably why you aren't doing more to move in the direction that you want to go. I don't know if you're seeing this here, but we're really radically accepting what's true, right? And how are we doing that? We are reconciling what is with what can be. Why do I resist what's true? Well, because what's true is not what I want, and it seems in opposition to what I want, and it seems incompatible with what I want, and it seems to be a tremendous obstacle to what I want. So obviously I'm going to resist it. But if I can begin to reconcile what is and what can be with a little positive imagination, it becomes so much easier to accept what is. Much, much easier to accept what is when there's not a false belief in my head that says what is will forever prevent me from having the thing that I want to have in life. What would it take to persuade myself to resist this a little bit less? If you believe that you could go from listen, you're behind, you're not behind. I can tell you you're not behind. You're probably not actually behind, but you're not going to believe me. So let's say you are behind. Are you sure that being behind means that you can't catch up? How do you know that being behind is not like a slingshot? You think about this, like a slingshot's here, and you put the stone in it. The stone's like right here, in the little thing, and you pull it way far back. And there's something about pulling it way far back. You're moving it farther away from the target, right? Which is, tin can or something. But pulling it back like that, moving it farther away from the target, it builds up this tension, right? And when that tension is released, the thing goes flying and it hits the target. How do you know that's not what's happening in your life right now? You don't. Now, you don't have to believe that's what's happening right now, right? You don't have to believe it. You just have to acknowledge that you don't know that that's not what's happening. Mm-hmm. And notice how much better you feel. And then you say to yourself, wow, I can talk to myself and think about different things in a way that will cause me to feel better about my situation. Watch the behaviors that flow out of that. A little bit more energy, a little bit more lightness, a little bit more willingness to try, right? I can feel bad about who I am, or I can become who I want to be. I can't do both at the same time. So hopefully that's helpful.
I'm an overthinking person. I have to get my head around everything. Steve is like that. How does he make it work for him? It backfires on me. I can accept and use my overthinking in a good way?
Yes, absolutely. Wouldn't that be so far? That's it. That's the one brief answer I've ever given in my life. Yeah. You want to say something about that?
Go for it.
The thing is, if you're going to be thinking a lot, you want to make sure you're thinking in ways that serve you. So when people talk about overthinking, oftentimes the problem isn't that they're thinking, it's what they're thinking about and how they're thinking about it. So very often overthinking is I'm focusing a whole lot on what I don't want, on what can go wrong, on how bad it'll feel, on how other people might think about me, and is it okay to do this, and all this different stuff. Now, if all of that thinking was going into all the wonderful things that could happen, all of the ways that you could get away with getting more of what you want out of life, all of the ways that you could, help other people, not specific people necessarily, but just people in general, all of the ways that you could become effortlessly more productive. So if your mind was thinking about stuff like that, you'd be going, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. And it would be really fun and great.
It's
great. And this is one of those things too, and why, having goals can be so useful. And I know what you're thinking right now, but I've been listening to Zig Ziglar recently just because I every once in a while I like to revisit, and he makes me feel good, and he talks about goals a lot. And so I know that you notice that I talk about different things depending on who I've been listening to. But if you've got goals for your life, if you've got goals for your day, about how would I like to feel today? What do I want what it's like to be me to be like, right? All that mental activity has these resourceful channels that it can flow through, and these resourceful reservoirs that it can flow to. But if I don't have that stuff that I want to create in my life, and I've got a tremendous amount of psychic energy, what's my mind going to do? Who might get mad at me? Why might they be mad at me? What might go wrong? How might I feel if that happens? Remember when you were 5 years old and you had some boogers on your nose and the whole class made fun of you? I mean, I'm speaking from personal experience here, right? You know what I mean? And so it's basically recognizing my mind is going to engage in a lot of activity. Right? Wanting my mind to engage in less activity than it does is only more mental activity. Have you ever noticed that? The thought I'm overthinking is a thought that you're thinking, right? And it's just, okay, do I think that the Colorado River flows with too much water, that the Mississippi River has too much water in it? Well, I can think that or not. It's not going to change the amount of water that's there. The question is, what am I going to do with it? Do I want to harness it? Do I just kind of want to let it flow? Do I want to get in it, let it carry me somewhere? Do I want to ride a boat? Do I want to sit on the shore and look at it? Do I want to fish? Think of your mental activity in that way. It's this big, massive, vast river. And it's not your job to stop it from flowing, unless you want to do a little hydroengineering, right? I mean, that is a legitimate thing to do. If you don't want to do that, or you don't feel capable of doing that right now, sit on the shore and watch it. Yeah, I mean, imagine feeling responsible for every little molecule of H2O that went floating by you in front of an enormous rushing river. Imagine how overwhelming that would be. But if you just sit there and look at it and you go, oh boy, look at all this activity. Overthinking is a sign that you're alive. Emotional resistance is a sign that you're alive. Suffering is nothing but an affirmation of life. I'm here. I exist. There is reality to my experience right now. Now, I'm not saying that, I wake up and say, I can't wait to suffer because it's going to let me know I'm living. But I do sometimes step back and go, these are all high-class problems. If I weren't conscious, if I didn't have a brain, if I didn't have a mind, if I didn't have a capacity to experience, none of this stuff would be here. That'll just give you a little perspective, right? Now, when you get that perspective, getting perspective is simply, I'm extricating myself from unresourceful misengagement with what has my attention. That's what getting perspective is. Now, what happens when I get perspective? I extricate myself from the briar bush of unresourceful engagement with what has my attention, right? I then have an opportunity to re-engage, right? Let me try it again. Don't worry about don't worry about getting caught in the briar bush again, because extricating yourself from it, pulling yourself out of it, has tremendous value, right? Letting go of a negative thought is more valuable than not thinking that negative thought in the first place, right? Try to wrap your head around that. Your mind's going to start going, okay, what am I supposed to feel bad about? Nothing, right? What can I feel bad about? Whatever you want. It really is. This is the way that it goes. This is that becoming uncertain about what you should do. And it's this thing. Letting go of resistance is more valuable than is not resisting. recalibrating, or say reorienting your mind from negative thinking to resourceful or positive thinking is more useful than just being positive all the time. It's in the correction. It's in the adjustment. It's in the, I don't know if you ever had the pleasure of being a child and being lovingly corrected by an adult who really cared about you, and corrected in a way that wasn't overbearing or authoritarian. But you can feel love come through a compassionate, conscious, calm correction. When the parent or the teacher enjoys parenting or enjoys teaching, you feel soothed by the correction because it registers as that person cares enough about me to give me their attention. It's just wonderful. And it's respectful, and it's nothing but an acknowledgement of your capacity to do it the right way. It's a wonderful thing. And when you learn, you can give yourself that experience by these loving little corrections. It's not finding fault. It's calling your mind's attention to an opportunity for optimization. That's it. Hey, I notice you're thinking about this. Why don't you try thinking about this instead? I notice you're clinging to this. Why don't you try letting it go? So hopefully that's useful.
Someone asked, do you believe in toxic positivity? And I hope even just that description
kind of shows you the difference between like the resourceful engagement that we teach and talk about and what Awareness School kind of gives you the tools to do versus like, no, you don't feel that. I mean, even when you think about it, like the correction of a child, Steve will also often give this example of being at a toy store or something, and some dad told his daughter, the little girl said, oh, I hate that, and he goes, you don't hate anything. That I think would be an example of like toxic positivity, of like we don't say hate, and so we suppress any feelings that we have that might express hatred or dislike for something, versus this kind of, am I consciously engaging with this thing in a way that's going to bring a more resourceful outcome, so it's never about suppressing or pretending you don't feel something, or just like, but there's also, I think, with the whole, spiritual bypassing and toxic positivity that causes people to even, say, oh, well, that's just thinking positive and that's not going to work. I need to, express my rage or whatever. It's all about resourceful engagement. It's never about what you should do, what's right or wrong, what we think you should do. It's always about what's the outcome you want and what's the most efficient way to facilitate that outcome, always. Mm-hmm. And that's it. And that's what we kind of help with these ideas for you to do, is for you to make sense out of taking the resourceful path to the thing that you want. It's never about overriding.
Yeah. I don't know I wouldn't probably use the term toxic positivity, but I think I understand what you're alluding to. I will say that I do think and have seen not useful things happen under the umbrella of being positive. I have seen teachers convey the idea in ways that don't seem, I guess, careful to me or specific or precise. And I've also seen people do things. Now, I don't know if the problem is with the concept of positivity or with certain ways that concept is taught, or if the problem is with the individual, because I have seen people take really powerful, potentially useful ideas, and because of the way it's almost like their mental reflexes are. It's like if I give you a spoon and I say, here, this will help you eat your ice cream, and the first thing you do is jam it in your eye. Like, that's not a problem with the spoon. It's like there's a reflex there that we kind of have to untrain. And so I have seen people systematically use several different concepts to their detriment. Now, if that's going on, that person, I think, needs assistance with, listen, I don't want to give you another tool to smack yourself in the face with. I want to talk to you about what you do with a tool when someone hands it to you. And it's, it's not that it always makes sense when a person does something like that. A lot of the time they have what I call sort of a existential GPS. They're going to feel a certain way. And their mind just says, okay, here's a tool. How can we use this tool to get us to feel this bad feeling? Mm-hmm. So, toxic positivity, I would say, what is it probably? And I think it's probably this idea that you have the obligation to have thought something more positive than you did, or the obligation to be thinking something more positive than you are. So you see the should and the obligation creep in there, right? And I don't find those concepts useful. And I'm not talking about the concept of toxic positivity. I'm talking about the idea that I should have thought something more positive, or that I should be thinking something more positive. My thing is, notice what you're doing. Notice the effect that what you're doing is having on what I call what it's like to be you, your overall experience, right? Notice the effects in the moment and over time, because there is sometimes a difference between those two things. And then so notice what you're doing, notice the effects that what you're doing is having on what it's like to be you, and then be open to trying something new. If you want to, if you want to create a difference in your experience, that's it. Now, this Okay, I think now I'm kind of honing in on the answer to what I think about what you said, which is that I have seen people who figure out a way to be toxic in their positivity or unresourceful in their positivity. And I've also seen people use ideas of positivity as almost like a weapon against themselves or other people, right? Not useful. It's not useful. It's obviously not useful. And none of this stuff is possible if you don't first consent to the idea that there are things that you should be doing. Here's a good idea, and you should be doing it. Well, shit, I'm doing something different. Does that mean it's time to feel bad? Or does that mean it's time to feel ashamed or guilty or like I deserve the best? No, that's not useful. And awareness is the ability just to recognize that. So it's usually true that I could be being more positive than I'm being. That's usually true. And it's also usually true that it would serve me to be being more positive than I'm being. That's also usually true. And it's always true that I need to approach that awareness, that realization, very carefully, because I can do more harm than good if I come at myself from a judgmental way or an obligation way. No one wants to be told what they should be thinking. I mean, it's the only area of your life where you have like something close to total freedom. You know what I mean? Like as a kid when you were, don't roll your eyes, don't sigh, look at me, stand up straight, all this different stuff. And in your mind, at least you had a little modicum of autonomy, right? And what I want to do is, can we enhance the quality of your thinking? Now, what does that mean? That means make it so that more of your thinking enriches your life and makes it better instead of making it worse than it needs to be, right? Not thinking the way you should, thinking in ways that are consistent with creating experiences and results that who wants? You want, right? How can we increase the resourcefulness of your thinking without in any way diminishing your freedom to think whatever you want, regardless of how resourceful it is or isn't? Now that's really nice, and I don't think there's very many teachers. I don't think there are very many teachers who really even consider, let alone are willing to put in the work required to. I want to give you the option to do something different without in any way compromising your ability to peacefully do whatever it is you've done up until this point. I want to give you things. I don't want to take anything from you. I want to give you the ability to do new things. And I want to give you that ability without imposing a negative feeling tax upon doing whatever it is you've done up until this point. And I really think it's possible to do that. Let's expand your options. I mean, for a lot of people, the option expansion process is I do what doesn't serve me, right? And now I'm learning how to do what does serve me. But when I learn how to do what does serve me, that option expansion comes with a sort of a concomitant option constriction. I can't do what doesn't serve me without feeling even worse about doing it than I used to do, because now I know it doesn't serve me and I have to resist it and tell myself I shouldn't do it. My thing is, we need a new option, right? I want to have the ability to do what doesn't serve me. I want to have the ability to do something that serves me better. And I also want to have the option to go back and do it the old way without having to feel bad. I want to have the option to veer from the path. I mean, you need to violate best practices. You need everything we tell you that you should do or that it's useful to do. You need to do the opposite to illustrate to yourself that what we're saying is true, if in fact it's true. That will be useful. It'll be instructive to you. You will learn things from it. So this whole idea that we're giving you a list of resourceful things to do so that you do that and only that is completely incorrect. We're giving you a list of things that you might want to do and also encouraging you to pay close attention to relationships between what you do and how you feel and the behaviors you generate and the responses that you get from your outside world so that you can be a good person now, so that you can make more conscious choices about what you're going to do and about what you're going to create and about how you're going to respond to what's going on. People have a really hard time believing that that's actually what we're talking about, because usually when a person finds themselves where you are watching this video, the only kind of person they have ever encountered in their life in this kind of situation was someone who was going to show them a new way of doing things, that they thought that was the right way, and that you need to start doing it this way and stop doing it that way. I don't feel that way. This is all about infusing you with more options, right? Including the option to be more at peace, being exactly the way you currently are. I want to show you a whole bunch of wonderful ideas, and I want to give you the freedom to look at those ideas, know those ideas will make your life better, and not do a damn thing with them if you don't want to. And sometimes that ability creates within you an insatiable desire to act upon those ideas. So I must confess that I do have that outcome in mind, but I got to cycle every positive impact I want to have on you through your free will, through your volition, through your consent. I have to be infinitely respectful of your right to be exactly the way that you are, or 10 or 1,000 or 10,000 million times worse, right? right? You know what I mean? 10,000 million times more unresourceful. That's your right to do that. And if you want to do that, I think you should absolutely be able to do that. And I'm not going to be upset with you if you do. There is that, like, if you don't have someone sharing this stuff with you who isn't willing to let you be exactly as you are and exactly as you choose to be without knowing how you're going to choose to be, it's really hard to receive good ideas from that person. Don't you feel the impulse to rebel in order to preserve your individuality and your autonomy? Have you ever heard a good idea from a person, but just felt that person was kind of oppressive in their desire to control you and shape you, and that made it harder for you to accept that idea? So we're all about kind of avoiding that. So.
Yes, it's all about freedom. It's all about choices. It's all about optionality. It's all about just playing with this way of doing life. And it's just stuff that we have found extremely helpful. Steve is very, very good. A couple of people mentioned like your ability to articulate things that like they've never heard people talk about it in that way. Steve's very, very good at that. And we're very lucky to have this ability to talk with someone who just has, that's the thing. And that's what you'll get when you kind of go through the course. Like it's 10 modules that you go through on your own of the Ever Better Life course. And this is the systematic framework for just kind of understanding how you create your experience. And it's really good and it's really helpful. And it just kind of really puts things into a perspective that you can start to use right away and see it in action. And you're just kind of like, it's about organizing your experience. Instead of, because like experience is just crazy. It's just stuff happening all the time and memories and thoughts and things happening now and anticipating the future and thinking about the past. It's like this big, just kind of mess. And the course helps you to create some bins, create an organizational structure so you can start to make sense out of this stuff that's flowing through your experience. And so you go through that. There's implementation guides, videos and audios for you to, notes for you to kind of like dive into the content. And then during the weekly meetings, you ask questions like this. You bring stuff to class. Yes, it's very interactive. So the Monday night meetings, it'll be at this time on Monday in the evenings, and we hang out for 2 hours, 3 hours, with whatever people bring to the table. And really, like the more that you interact and engage, the better, because it's helpful. We can illustrate the tools, and because sometimes it's like, okay, well, how do I actually use that? Bring your problem, bring your issue, bring whatever. We love it when people get really involved in asking questions, and there's a Telegram group to stay connected between the meetings. So it really is. If this stuff kind of like lights you up and makes sense to you, and you're just like, yes, Awareness School's for you. And we really recommend if you hang around either of our channels and pages and like the stuff that we talk about, at some point you're going to want to take Awareness School. Mm-hmm. Well, it's going to be, so for the 10 weeks, it's 5 p.m. Pacific time, Mondays from October 16th for 10 weeks. And we do 3 bonus meetings that typically meet on Saturday mornings. And so it's ideal if you're going to have to miss more than 3 classes. We suggest taking it another time, because like the more that you can just be present and say, I'm doing this thing and I'm going to show up and be there every week and engage, that's really what you're going to get the most out of. And so, if the timing doesn't work for you, do it another round. We'll keep teaching the class. But do your best. Because the sooner you have access to these tools and get to start playing with this, people retake it. I think Michelle's like, I'm going to retake continually learning. Oh, wonderful. We have a lot of Awareness School people on the video today. But it's like, it's something you keep revisiting every time. It's like, you see it with new eyes because you're becoming a new person, which is really fun, really cool. I think if you have more questions, other people posted questions. We're going to go live again on Friday evening, because again, we're in our like early bird, get in, save, have a discount on joining the course now until Friday. And then the price goes up. And again, it starts on October 16th, so a week from Monday. Yeah.
Something that's worthwhile is like, we're not perfect with this stuff by any means, right? I've gotten better at being imperfect at this stuff. And I think that's like that's like when you start kind of like honing in on something like mastery, it's like when you stop trying to perfect it, because there's nothing worth perfecting in this world, because it becomes rigid and becomes almost religious and constrictive. But you get really good at being imperfect at it, right? And you get sort of that because that's that elegant. Because what is like striving for perfection is I never want to screw up. I never want to violate the principle. That's not true for me. I want to violate the principle, and I want to get quicker at responding more resourcefully to having violated that principle. I want to get quicker at the correction. I want to get more seamless. I want to make it so that the correction feels so good and is so rewarding that I feel better having made a mistake than I would have made if I never made a mistake in the first place. Like, have the courage to make a mistake. Have the courage to say these things are worth doing, and then let yourself not do them, and so that you can then move forward from that. And I was thinking that this is kind of like I don't surf, but I'm interested in surfing. I find it kind of very cool and impressive. And I think that personal growth, this is an approach to, mindset, whatever. Personal growth is like a weird, I don't know what else to call it. It's kind of like surfing, it's like the waves, should they be coming in the way that they are? Should they be bigger? Should they be smaller? Should they be more or less frequent? They just are, right? The waves are coming in. Now, when the waves come in, you can be in the water, you can be on the beach. And if you're in the water, you can be in there with a surfboard or without. And if you're on the surfboard, you can surf in a certain way that works or in a way that doesn't work as well. And this, for me, is all about, I'm interested in catching the wave. I mean, catching the wave is fun. I've catched the wave. I've been crushed by the wave. Catching the wave is more fun. Now, I'm willing to get crushed. I think you probably can't be a surfer if you're not willing to get crushed by the wave once in a while, right? You'd probably never go out there. But over time, you learn certain things, and you learn how to catch more of the waves more of the time. And if you don't, if you get crushed, well, you get to visit the little bottom and feel the, ground down there and all that. It's fine. But it's not about doing it right. It's about sort of just harnessing the flow of what's going on, catching the wave of what's happening, a physical problem, a health issue. What's happening? Emotional resistance, right? What's happening? Unresourceful belief. What's happening? Business problems. What's happening? The business problem is I'm making too much money and I'm terrified instead of jubilant. What's happening? I'm not happy in my relationship, right? And what's happening? I'm uncertain about whether the problem is me or my partner or the two of us together. That's a wave. Are you riding it or not? Now, it's not to say that there aren't solutions and they're not moving towards the solutions, but the wave is what is. The wave, when what is good, what is the wave. And what is not good, not desirable, what is the wave. Can you catch a wave of what you want? Can you ride a wave of what you want? Or do you get freaked out? Can you catch a wave of what you don't want? And can you ride that somewhere useful? Mm-hmm. And that's that whole thing, is like the more skilled you become, the more you can get away with doing. You can get away with doing what doesn't serve you a whole lot more as your skill improves, because you learn how to respond resourcefully to doing things that aren't resourceful. And it doesn't mean that you do what doesn't serve you more of the time. It just means that you don't spend so much time worrying about it, because you'll handle it, because you've become this resourceful responder. So it's kind of, what is it? It's kind of like a really great old pair of jeans. You know what I mean? It's like super high quality, but it's also worn in and you love it, right? That's how these principles are for me. It's like a really great vintage piece of clothing that's like holding up forever. It's washed, it's been worn so many different times. It looks great. It's not pristine, it's not perfect, it's not even always pretty, right? But gosh, it sure is useful, and it gets more comfortable the more that you wear it, and it improves your confidence, and it's a nice addition to your psychological body. You know what I mean? It's just kind of a nice, it's almost like, if you get new rain boots or you get a new raincoat or something like that, and then you get on the weekend and on Monday it's a miserable rainy day. That rainy day has a whole different meaning to you than if you were hoping to go out for a nice walk in the park. But if you've got that coat you want to try out, oh my God, or it gets cold and you've got a really snappy jacket that you're excited to wear, it's fantastic. I mean, some people get so excited, it's hot and they wear that stuff, right? And when you've got a strategy for responding resourcefully to life's challenges become a little bit like that rainy day. Not always, but a lot of the time, oh boy, here's an opportunity to, instead of being afraid of fighting with your partner, you go, are we about to have a fight? And then you start conspiring together to use those ideas to effectively navigate that experience. I want to avoid it if I'm not in it, right? But if I'm in it, I want to navigate it. I want to take advantage of the fact that I'm there to learn as much as I possibly can. So that's kind of the background philosophy of this stuff.
Yes. One brief thing before we close, because the sun is going down, our ducks are quacking, and our cow's out in the field, and we got to go find her. But someone asked, is a membership different than Awareness School? Yes. So I have a weekly class. So if you're really interested in German New Medicine, Germanic healing knowledge, and the 5 biological laws, and kind of the nuts and bolts of the biology and how to apply and understand how biological conflicts work, that is my language of adaptation class that meets on Monday mornings at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Awareness School is so that's a membership that's just ongoing. You can join, quit anytime. Awareness School is a 10-week masterclass program with the Ever Better Life course and 10 weeks of group coaching. So that's a different thing, and that is, you pay the course fee to enroll in that. It's not a monthly membership. So that's the difference between those two things. They're both awesome and wonderful, and often people will do both. But it's like, and that's the thing too, also too, a lot of people are like, oh, is Awareness School about GNM? It's not. It is about these master level patterns of perception and understanding yourself that are very helpful and useful if you're using GNM
to understand your conflicts, your symptoms, and what's going on. It's a tool set that's very helpful if that's what you are, looking to do. It's like, I need to understand where my tracks are. Awareness is incredibly helpful for all of that. So it's very complimentary.
It's not
endeavor.
It's not about it, but it is about it. We'll say it that way.
Yeah.
It's about, because it's about what do you do about it. I mean, that's kind of how I think about it. So.
Yeah, so thank you guys for being here. Check out the info page if you want to read more about the class, look at the payment options. And yeah, we'd love to have you join us. Early Bird ends on Friday and we start in 2 weeks. So have a great day.
Thanks
Bye.
for being here. Look forward to seeing you maybe on Friday, right?
Yep. We'll be back on Friday.